I think passive worship has been a problem, and we just started talking about that engagement. And it doesn't have to do with style. I think that it occurs. Passivity can occur in any type of worship style. In fact, I'll give you an example in a moment. I'll just leave if you have the the workshop or description up there, or the session description. Just leave it up there. But let me give you two quick examples. A little while ago, a pastor called me, and he's pastor of a pretty large church that has three services. You have a contemporary service, traditional service, and a blended service. Your three basic types. And he called me. He said that and he said, last Sunday I was in our contemporary service, and I was called out for an emergency. And I left the room. The band was playing, the worship, meaning the music was underway. And in this service, the lights are dim and there's a bunch of people in the auditorium. And as I say, the band was playing. Pastor slips out, takes care of the emergency. And he told me, he said, usually I sit in the front row. And then when the band is done, they leave and I just get up and preach. But since I'd been called out, I didn't want to come back in the front row and make a scene. So I thought, okay, I'll slip in the back, and then when it's time to preach, I'll move forward into the onto the stage. He said, well, I was not prepared for what I saw. And I said, what did you see? He said, I saw 350 people in this room watching the band sing. I said, what do you mean? Now, I knew what he meant, but I made him tell me. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they were standing and they were kind of swaying a little bit, moving around to the beat, but nobody was singing. I said, didn't you know anybody was singing? Hasn't been singing? He said, no, I was in the front row. I never saw the people behind me, and I couldn't hear them because the band was so loud. I made an assumption all these months people were singing. I found out Sunday they're not singing. And his question to me was, that's passive. How can I help my people participate in worship? Because what I saw was passivity. Okay, I want you to kind of freeze frame that for a second. And then by contrast, I went to a traditional service. They called it traditional in a town in Ohio, close to this time when I had just gotten off the phone with this other guy. And what I saw was a traditional service, but again, almost everything took place on the platform. So you had a choir that sang for the people. You had a soloist that sang for the people. You had like three little girls they played their recital pieces for the offertory. And after each one of these things, people clapped. And so what I saw was sort of an audience mentality in a traditional service where people were watching stuff going. So my big point here is I don't think any particular worship style is guilty, more or less guilty of this. But what happens is we end up doing worship for other people rather than inviting people into the activity of worship.